Exposure Compensation Act, better known as RECA, and how you can apply. If you want to view tonight's presentation, you can watch live at fernandez.house.gov/live, or just go to fernandez.house.gov and click on the red banner on the top. My office will also be hosting in-person workshops for people who prefer to be in person or can't get online later on in the coming weeks and months, so we can help folks learn about how to apply. It's very important to us that everybody who is eligible gets the funding that they need. 35 years ago, Congress passed RECA to provide a one-time payment to individuals who got cancer and other diseases because of the government's nuclear testing program. New Mexico, as we all know, is where the government first detonated an atomic bomb at the Trinity site. It's where uranium workers from Laguna and Acoma Pueblos and the Navajo Nation worked without protection on the mines and in the mines. It's where little girls at summer camp in Ruidoso danced outside and caught ashes from the Trinity test on their tongues, thinking it was some kind of summer snow. Yet the original RECA did not cover post-71 uranium workers, and it left out New Mexican downwinders. It was an environmental injustice of the most explosive nature. So I am so happy to share with you that we finally fixed this injustice and passed a law to make sure New Mexicans benefit under RECA. Now, I want to thank the people that made this happen. And it's organizations like Tula Rosa Basin Downwinders Coalition, which is led by Tina Cordova, but had so many dedicated volunteers to join the effort. It was people like Phil Harrison, who was my guest at a State of the Union event, and Loretta Anderson, who championed the needs of the post-71 uranium workers. I also want to thank the coalition from Utah and Missouri and Nevada and Arizona and all these other places who had also suffered from the injustice and came and prayed with us and lobbied their own congressmen and senators. And talking about senators, Senator Ben Ray Lujan, he led the RECA amendments in Congress, and I took over when he went to the Senate. And thank heaven he went to the Senate, because when he got there, he developed his own coalition that included Senator Hawley, who worked hard to make sure that this passed, because he needed to make sure that there was justice for the Missourians who were poisoned by the Manhattan Project, that they took the waste from Los Alamos and dumped it in Missouri. Together, it was this coalition of advocates who came up here time after time. They jumped in buses and rode for days. We held prayer vigils. We had press conferences. We walked the halls of Congress, and little by little, their voices were heard and justice was done. So now it is the law. It is passed. And New Mexican downwinders and post-71 uranium workers and everybody who is now covered, because the law had lapsed, are now eligible for their $100,000 RECA payment. As many of you know, the law that was passed has 2 years. It only stays open for 2 years. So the compensation will end if you don't apply for it before December 31st, 2027. So it's really important that you start to gather your documents right away and apply as soon as you can. I also want to give a little warning now. We have heard of scammers that are out there trying to take advantage, trying to talk you into giving them their documents so they can get a little piece of your compensation. Be careful before you give away any personal information or before you sign any paperwork. Make sure you are working with somebody who is trustworthy. And there are lots of people, and we're going to have those experts on later today, who are available to help you without any cost. Later on tonight, we'll be joined by Senator Lujan as well as these experts who will explain who is eligible for RECA and how to apply. And we are also here to answer your questions. If you want to ask a question, we're gonna ask you to press *3. So if you want to get in the queue, get in the line to be able to ask a question, press *3. You can also call my office at 505-428-4680. My entire office in Washington, D.C., and back in New Mexico, in Gallup, and in every place we have staff are standing by and working to help make sure that we're here to answer your questions, because we want everybody to be able to get the compensation they deserve. Now I'm going to turn it over to Denise Bartley and Zachary Davis from the New Mexico Radiation Exposure and Screening Programs for their presentation. But before I do, I want to see if is Senator Ben Ray Lujan yet with us. So when Senator joins us, we're going to interrupt because we really want to hear from him, because he's been such a tireless advocate on this and built the coalition that led to success in the Senate. So right now, I'm going to go to Denise and Zach so that we can begin that essential information. Denise and Zach. There we go. I see Zach. Is he on?
Okay. So can we go ahead and start the slides?
Yes, please do.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. And we really appreciate that you've allowed Zach and I to speak with you this evening. We have some information concerning RECA and the updates, and we're going to go through that tonight. We also have prepared a slide program for you. If you are on the phone, this information can be obtained through the Department of Justice website. So you can type in on your search bar, DOJ space RECA, and it will take you right to that site. That site is very helpful. It also is where you can obtain the applications. The applications may at first seem very scary, but they're really not if you look at them, and anyone could do these. So, please look at that website. Also, for the slides, you can go to fernandez.house.gov/live. Okay, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So, okay, I'm sorry. These are going to be a little bit out of sync, but that's okay. This was an older version. So I just wanted to talk about the milestones of RECA. So RECA was first established really quite some time ago in 1991. When it was originally enacted, though, it only included those affected by radiation from nuclear testing. So it was amended in 2000, which broadened it to include uranium workers into the mix. And that pretty much stayed the same until 2022, when RECA was slated to end originally. It was extended for 2 additional years, and I really think a lot of that was because of COVID. People could not get their forms and information that they needed to file. So RECA was slated to end and did end June the 7th, 2024. From June the 8th, 2024 to July 3rd of 2025, there was no compensation for those that had been adversely affected by the uranium industry. So in July 2025 of this year, I'm sorry, I said the wrong date. July 4th of 2025, RECA was reauthorized, it was expanded, and we are very excited to talk about these expansions. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is the website that you all can go to for the Department of Justice. So any of the information tonight, if you don't glean it on the first time through, no problem. It's all on this website as well. Okay, go to the next slide, please. This I was wanting to bring up, and I really appreciate that Congresswoman Fernandez also brought it up. So there are many people out there who can file claims, and some of them are fraudulent. Not all, but some. So it is really important for people to trust whoever they choose to file claims for them. The other thing is that you do not have to pay anybody to file a claim for you. You can file a claim for yourself or for your family member at no charge. You'll get your full compensation. So there are individuals out there who've made a business of filing the RECA claims. Some of them will take money up front. Some of them will wait until you get compensated and take a portion of what your compensation award is. There's also medical and home health agencies that can help you file your claims. And of course, lawyers and attorneys. Now, the Department of Justice does have a set amount that the lawyers and attorneys can take. They can take 1% to 2% of your original claim if it is processed successfully on the first attempt. If you do have to refile the claim, they can take 10%, which is $10,000. The nice part about this, at least you know up front what you're getting into. Some of the individuals you don't exactly know, so be sure you know what you're getting into before you do talk to somebody else and give out your information. So back on those that file claims without charge to you, you can do it yourself. Also, you can go through the Department of Justice help desk if you get stuck somewhere along the way. We did question at a recent meeting whether this was really something that we should be referring people to. And the staff that we work with the Department of Justice has said, absolutely, give this number out, let people know this is what they're there for. Also, there are tribal uranium workers' offices. I know there are several throughout the Navajo Nation. And then there are also the Radiation Exposure Screening and Education Program offices like Zach and I do. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to also talk a little bit about RECA, or RECEP, I'm sorry. These are the programs that Zach and I do. RECEP was established in 2002, and it was established as a direct result of RECA. When RECA was amended in 2000 to include the uranium workers, these workers were having a hard time finding healthcare providers who would do their exams and focus on what we needed or what was actually needed for them to get successful claims filed. So the Health Resources and Services Administration, or HRSA, established a grant program that assisted healthcare facilities provide medical screening for uranium workers. We also help individuals file for uranium claims. You can go to the next slide. There are 2 RECEP groups here in New Mexico, and both Zach and I are on this call tonight. Zach Davis is with the University of New Mexico RECEP. His contact information is listed there. And then I am with the Northern Navajo IHS RECEP. So because my RECEP group is through Indian Health Services, we are limited to providing services for Native Americans. Though we can provide service for any Native American who can be seen through IHS, and we, regardless of that, will answer any calls that come our way. And again, especially for this slide, for those of you who cannot see the slides, you can get the slides from fernandez.house.gov/live. Okay, next slide, please. So Zach and I are going to talk about the different programs. There are 4 of them, but we're going to take each one individually, and we're going to put the emphasis on the downwinder and the uranium workers. So the Department of Justice defines a downwinder as an individual who developed a certain cancer after exposure to radiation released during atomic nuclear tests. These had to be conducted in the United States. And as we all are aware, the first atomic bomb testing was done in New Mexico, was Trinity, and it was done in 1945. Go ahead to the next slide, please. There are definitely certain criteria that have to be met before a person can receive the downwinder compensation. So one of these is that you have to live in a specific area and you had to have lived there during a specific time period. So the counties that are the states are Arizona with specific counties, Pocono, Yavapai, Navajo, Apache, Gila, and Mojave. Anywhere in the state of Idaho, in Nevada with specific counties of White Pine, Lander, Lincoln, Eureka, and Clark County Townships 13 to 16 at ranges 63 to 71. And then Hallelujah, New Mexico, the entire state. So I did look at the questions earlier that had come in with the registration, and there was a couple about were specific counties included. If you live in New Mexico, your county is included. And then also the entire state of Utah. And for the time periods, for the state of New Mexico, you needed to live within the state for 1 year, 12 months between September 24th, 1944 and November 6th of 1962. New Mexico is the only state that goes back that far. And since Trinity was detonated in 1945, it makes perfect sense. Or you could have been in any one of these areas for 1 year between January 21st, 1951 and November 6th of 1962. Again, or you could have been in any one of these affected areas between June 30th of 62 and July 31st of 62. Now, these are not consecutive time periods. You could have come and gone. So, and it didn't all have to be in New Mexico either. You could have been a resident of New Mexico in 1950 for 6 months. So then moved to Oklahoma, not a covered state. But then you moved back to New Mexico in 1953, and you were there for several years. So those would count. They add up. It does not have to be consecutive months. It's cumulative. And the same is true for the states. It can be a combination of these locations as long as it fits the time frames. Okay, you can move forward, please. So proof is sometimes a difficult thing. You do have to have proof of presence. This is a list of some of the documentation that the Department of Justice will accept. And usually what they want is a beginning date and an end date for that time period that is acceptable for compensation. You can use a combination of things. And what they're saying now from our last meeting is they really would like them to be within a 3-year period if it's a consecutive residence. So you can use official birth certificates, official death certificates, medical records or immunization records, U.S. Census reports, this is really exciting because the Department of Justice is now accepting copies of U.S. Census records off of Ancestry. So that is new. If they think that it's been forged or altered or they just have a question about it, they do have access and they'll go look it up on their own. So, but accepting that copy is huge. Also, you can use correspondence, and this is actually not correct. You can use correspondence letters, bills, that is correct, but it doesn't have to be something that came from the U.S. Postal Service. If your bill, if you have a date on that bill and it has your name on it, electric bill from the 1950s, 60s, then that would still count. Church records, school records, and tax records are just a few. Those who are members of the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, they keep very detailed records, and they go back forever, basically. The Department of Justice does have a place on their application for downwinders that if a person was with the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, they actually will request those records to see where you were if you have not done that. So that does help out a little bit. Okay, next slide, please. So you also have to have a compensable cancer. I have diseases here, but it truly is cancer. They're not wavering on this. So this is, you have to have been diagnosed, or the claimant has to have been diagnosed with leukemia, but not chronic lymphatic leukemia, multiple myeloma, the lymphomas, but other than Hodgkin's, and one of the following primary cancers.
So,
Yes? Okay, sorry. So one of the following primary cancers, breast cancer, male or female, bile duct cancer, brain, colon, esophageal, urinary bladder, these are messed, gallbladder, liver, but not in the presence of cirrhosis or hepatitis B, lung cancer, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, pharyngeal cancer, cancer of the salivary gland, small intestine, so that goes on to the other line, switch way back there, stomach cancer, or thyroid cancer. There are instances, and I know that they're very frustrating, but there are times when people will come in that have been diagnosed with a non-compensable cancer, for example, prostate cancer or uterine cancer. Over time, that cancer could spread or metastasize to another area. So, for example, let's use a lung. So a gentleman who has prostate cancer, and then that cancer has spread to the lung, that is still not compensatable. It has to be a primary cancer. Okay, next slide, please.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And I think it's really important that the reason these are the compensable cancers is these are the ones that are related to exposure to, and so that's why they're there, and it has to be connected to the kinds of radiation. I really am very happy that we're able to be joined tonight by Senator Ben Ray Lujan. When the senator first got to Congress, he introduced the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act expansion that is the base of what has turned into law. I need to say I inherited it from him, and he became then the champion in the Senate. This is a legislation that he has introduced every term that he has served in the House and the Senate. He got it passed out of the Senate twice. And so we are incredibly grateful for his leadership. And thank you so much, Senator, for joining us on the line and for your tireless, indefatigable support for this legislation and for getting it passed into law. Senator Ben Ray Lujan.
oh, well, Teresa, thank you so very much for those kind words, for the work that you have done and you continue to do, and for organizing this important conversation and this important presentation. The work that we were able to do to earn support from our colleagues came from the courage that we were given, Teresa, from all of the advocates, from all of the families throughout New Mexico who deserve all of the gratitude for always speaking up and for bringing the country together. New Mexico advocates and families that have suffered for so long are responsible for the passage of this legislation. So I just want to thank each and every one of you. To all of the presenters that you've included today, Representative Ledger Fernandez, thank you as well, with all these experts, with the short window that exists for people to get signed up. But I'm so very proud that this legislation is going to help more New Mexico families. I've been very proud of the effort of what I learned from Senator Tom Udall, where we worked on this together as well, as you pointed out, Representative, from back in 2009. And for the first time, as you've already laid out, New Mexico downwinders and post-71 uranium workers are finally included. Now, this is the justice that generations of New Mexicans have fought for, but this victory only matters if people receive the compensation that they deserve. So rather than me walking through all of this, Teresa, you already have experts that have been walking through everyone that will benefit. from the RECA payment that will provide a one-time payment of $100,000 to people who were exposed to radiation from nuclear weapon testing and later developed cancers, to those uranium mine workers who were excluded that worked in the mines after 1971. So thank you for being so thorough, Teresa. I look forward to my office being working hand in hand with you, Representative, to ensure that we're able to provide the support to all of our constituents. So thank you so very much for the work that you have done, that you continue to do. And just to everyone on the call, if there's anything I can do, please come to my website as well, lujan.senate.gov. That's Lujan, Lujan, .senate, senate.gov, G-O-V. And there's more information that we are sharing as well there as you are, Representative. And just last thing, most importantly, you do not need a lawyer to file a claim. I just want to point that out. The way that this is being put together, we're working with our constituents, and just be wary of people that are out there, the scammers. You know, there's folks out there that don't mean well, and I'm only saying this because we heard from families in New Mexico, from advocates that are so concerned of folks just trying to take advantage of others. We can all work together. Let's stand together. Let's look after each other. This is the next step of this important fight. And to all those families across the country that were not included in this version of legislation, our fight continues. And we're going to make sure that we continue to work to include all families that deserve this support across America. But truly, to the New Mexico family, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Representative Leger Fernandez, thank you for being the leader that you are and the leader that you always have been. It's an honor to work with you and with other colleagues to have gotten this done. Now let's work to get everyone signed up that deserves this coverage. Thank you again, Representative. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm sorry that we had the technical difficulties, but I'm so glad to hear your voice because it is the senator's ability to build coalitions. And I'm never going to forget, we had many of the downwinders and the people from Utah and Missouri and everywhere, and we're all watching as he works the floor of the Senate the first time he got it passed, as he develops the relationship and friendship with Senator Hawley, who became a great champion on this. So thank you, and we will all continue, because that's what us Nuevo Mexicanos do, right? We work as a family to make sure that our families are taken care of. I'm going to remind everybody to press *3 if you have a question, and go to the website if you want to see the presentation live now or see it later. You can tell your friends to see it later at fernandez.house.gov/live. We have a nice big banner. We're going to keep it up there all week so you can get to it. And I'm going to go back to Denise. Because she's going to tell us about what are the kinds of documentation. And we are getting in the weeds, everybody, because we want you to have the information you need. The presentation is going to be up and available to you if you miss part of it. But let's go back to Denise to talk about the documentation of medical diagnosis that you will need.
Thank you. Okay, so I do want to reiterate that some of the things that were brought up, there is no reason that people cannot file their own claims. The forms, they look daunting, but the application forms really, if you go through the process and look at what they need, they're really straightforward. So I just want to reiterate that. So that is a good thing. So with everything, of course, you have to have documentation of that disease or illness, cancer. And with downwinders, most of those are going to be obtained from a medical facility. So what you'll need to do is obtain medical records. They'll need to be certified by that medical facility. When you request the records, if you tell them to certify them, the medical records office knows what that means. But you can get a pathology report. You can submit operative reports, hospital discharge summaries, physician summary reports. You can also obtain death certificates through, and some of these certificates, if you do not have them, you can obtain them through the vital statistics offices in your county. The death certificate would, of course, have to have the diagnosis of one of those compensable cancers on there. and then also autopsy reports. You can go forward. So this is the compensation amount. So if a person qualifies in all those areas and they provide that proof to the Department of Justice, the RECA compensation payout is a one-time lump sum of $100,000. This is why people are coming out of the woodwork to assist you in your claims to get a part of your $100,000. So the price for qualification, the payment for the downwinders has increased with this new RECA. One of the things that it is a little bit frustrating for people who had downwinder, a successful downwinder claim in the past, they were paid $50,000. So unfortunately for those people, they cannot file a new claim and get an additional $50,000. You can only file a claim one time and get one payout. And that is also true if a person qualifies for, let's say, a uranium worker as well as a downwinder. You could not file for both. You have to choose one or the other. If an individual has died, their survivors may apply for equal shares of a single payment. And they have to be done in this order. So if a person dies, their surviving spouse, if they've been married for at least 1 year before the date of death, can file for the RECA compensation. If there is no surviving spouse, then the surviving children can file. And this includes natural children, adopted children, or stepchildren. Now, sometimes here it gets pretty murky because when you're filing a claim for your parent, you're still filing that claim on the parent's behalf. So each of the children do not file a claim. One claim goes in, and all of the children need listed on that one claim. There have been instances where people have tried to leave off a sibling because, for whatever reason, they're estranged, they didn't help as much with the family, doesn't matter. The Department of Justice will figure it out, and you will get your claim denied if all of those children are not listed. So just be upfront and do that. And then from there, it goes parents, grandchildren, and grandparents. You can go for the next slide, please. Okay, and here's where I'm going to turn it over to Zach.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much, Dr. Bartley. I'll be passing it back to Dr. Bartley here in just a little bit, but I am going to talk about the uranium workers. I also wanted to thank Congresswoman Fernandez for inviting me, and also it was great to hear Senator Lujan. That was awesome. If you are able to see the slide, we're talking about uranium workers. The UNM RECEP office, this is primarily what we have been doing since the majority of New Mexico, well, since New Mexico wasn't a downwinder state, we help out a lot with those former uranium workers. Those are going to be the miners, millers, and the ore transporters. Now what they've done is they've also opened that up to core drillers and then remediation workers, and vanadium uranium ore has also been included. Excuse me. And you can see in the picture that we have a miner doing some work. You can see a truck hauling some ore across a desert. And then you can see also a bucket full of what looks like to be yellow cake. And yellow cake is the processed ore. That processed ore is a higher concentration of uranium. And typically that would have been mainly for mill workers that we would worry about the yellow cake. And it would include some other disease processes that would be compensable. Now it's the same compensation across the board, but I'll elaborate on that in just a moment. Next slide, please. For the uranium worker qualification criteria, you had to have been employed for at least 1 year between the dates of January 1st, 1942 to December 31st, 1990. So that has been extended that 19 years. It used to stop at 1971. And we all know that the work didn't stop at 1971. There were a lot of uranium workers that were continuing to get sick and worked in the mine. And now that has been opened up to all those folks that worked anywhere in between 1942 and 1990. You had to have been employed in a uranium mine or mill located in one of the states of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Wyoming, South Dakota, Washington, Utah, Idaho, North Dakota, Oregon, and Texas. You don't necessarily have to have all of your work in one area. You could have worked in, just as long as you have a cumulative 1 year of work, you should be good to go. The other thing that sometimes pops up is somebody may have had slightly less than 1 year, but if they worked in an area that had a higher concentration of radon, or they were exposed to a higher concentration of the yellow cake or the radioactivity, they may be able to file. They still may be able to file. I've seen a couple of those go through. In that case, you could still try and file up front and see what happens, but you may need some legal help at that point. We can cover a little bit more of that later. Next slide, please. The worker is typically going to be diagnosed with different disease processes than it is for a downwinder. The disease processes we're primarily looking for are lung cancer, pulmonary fibrosis, or fibrosis of the lung, and typically that encompasses silicosis and pneumoconiosis also. When we see the diagnosis letters written for these people that have pulmonary fibrosis, they typically lump the silicosis and pneumoconiosis into that diagnosis also. The other one would be cor pulmonale, related to a fibrosis of the lung. There's been a couple of those, not many of those. Typically, it's the fibrosis of the lung that we see. Now, all workers can file with renal cancer, and they can also file with any chronic renal disease, including nephritis and tubal tissue injury. That took away kind of the Miller, the people that were working in the higher concentrations were the only ones that were able to file with the renal cancer and the kidney injury. Now anybody can file, any of the uranium workers can file with those diagnoses. Next slide, please. So one of the main things that I would say greater than 80% of the people that go through my RECEP office, they file with the pulmonary fibrosis diagnosis. So how do we get to that diagnosis? There's a couple of ways that can happen. You might have gone to your doctor, and your doctor has diagnosed you with pulmonary fibrosis. And if you have that information, along with a letter from them, you can usually use that to file. What we typically see more of, though, is what they call a B-read being done on a chest X-ray of the former uranium worker. That B-reader is basically a physician that has been certified by the National Institute for the Occupational Health and Safety, and has received special training, and the government has given them the thumbs up to be able to look at a chest x-ray and see if they see a certain level of pulmonary fibrosis. I'll touch on that a little bit more in just a moment here. This person is that specialized training is the International Labor Organization classification system, and that is what they use to see if they have that occupational related disease. The next statement here, it says this is usually paid for by the claimant and the fee is set by the physician. That's typically only if you're going outside or you're getting a third party B reader to do the B reading. We have our own B reader within the UNM system who has been doing this for years and is very accomplished at it. If you were to go to somebody else, I don't know of anybody. I know there's other B readers out there, but if you were to go to somebody else and have your B read done by them, that's probably just fine, but you need to make sure that you get a diagnosis letter with that B read. If you came to me and said, hey, I want you to help me file, I've got this B read from Dr. whoever, and they just have the B read form and it's got the right boxes checked off and stuff, without a diagnosis letter, it is useless. Unfortunately, I can't use it. If we submitted that application would get kicked back to us.
So Zach,
slide,
I think this is such a, Zach, I'm going to kind of jump in here. I think this is really an important point, is that we need the B reader, but your office can do that. UNM can do that. And the miners up in Raton, they can do that, if I'm correct. So remember, this is something that's required, but when you utilize the UNM program, they're going to help you get the B read. This is not something that they're going to leave you all alone at. You go to UNM, you go up to Raton, they're going to help you get this. This is only if you've gone somewhere else. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, primarily that is correct. I have had some old B reads come from Raton that don't have an accompanying diagnosis letter, and so if Raton is offering that service, and make sure that you do get a diagnosis letter at the time you get your B read there. I can't speak for them directly. So I'm not exactly 100% sure on that. But your statement about us having our own B reader, we will not leave you out in the, dust or anything, yeah, we will make sure that you get a chest x-ray done, and that you get that we send that chest x-ray off to our pulmonologist, Dr. Sood, and he does the B read on that. So that is correct. Yes. Next slide, please. So this is the B read sheet, and I wanted to bring this up because this is kind of, when I'm talking to people on the phone, this gets to be a sticky point, but we can see this sheet. It's got all these little check boxes all over it. And, when you come and you get screened, or if we're just doing a chest x-ray process, we send that chest x-ray off to get it be read and have a B read sheet done. Dr. Sood's going to look at this, and he's going to look at that x-ray, and he's going to examine the x-ray, and everything that he sees in that chest x-ray, he is basically going to mark it on this sheet. The one that is most important to us, and it's hard to see, but if you look down, you'll see 12 boxes all kind of together. It is in line 2B, I believe. So it's kind of this cluster of boxes there, and you can't really see it, but there's 12 boxes there. If you're checked at box 4 or above, it's not going to say the number 4. It's going to say 1/0. The next box has a 1/1. Then it's a 1/2. If it's checked at that 4th box or above, that is a positive diagnosis of there is enough scar tissue within the lungs that they can see that the Department of Justice recognizes that as a positive B read. If you have a positive B read, and I get that sheet back and I look at it, it always comes accompanied with a diagnosis letter. So I'll have that B read, I'll have that diagnosis letter, and then the last piece of information that I attach to it is I have to sign a piece of paper giving a certification of record. And that's just saying that, UNM houses all of this information. We've got that information. I can reproduce it at any point if they need it and stuff, but I'm certifying that all of that lives in my office. There's going to be a lot of other check boxes down here. Anything, like I said, that the pulmonologist is going to see, they're going to mark it on there. Go ahead and we can move on to the next slide. Anything else that they see, maybe you had back surgery and you have rods in your spine or something along those lines. If that shows up on the x-ray also, he's going to mark it there, and it'll be either up in the upper boxes that you see there, or it'll be written in, and you can see things like, post this patient had a coronary artery bypass graft at some point, and so you can see that, or maybe they have an artificial valve. They would note that there. If there's any other issues or anything we need to be concerned about, that'll usually be written there also.
Thank you so much, Zach. And I just want to remind everybody that star 3, if you have a question that you want to ask, we have some online questions that get into some, love the deep detail, but that get into some of the bigger questions. And let's now go back to Zach. Star 3, if you have a question, we'll go back to Zach so that you can talk about the uranium worker compensation. And I wanted to ask, so as you talk about that uranium worker compensation, for people who live in New Mexico and places where there's both downwinder and worker, you might not qualify for the worker because you only had 6 months, but you might qualify for the downwinder because you've lived in New Mexico. So there might be some areas where you're needing to make a decision. The uranium worker has more benefits available because of some of the issues that Zach's going to talk about in terms of being able to get access to healthcare and additional benefits. But if you didn't work for a full year, maybe only 6 months, maybe you do the downwinder. So there's going to be some considerations that people like Zach and some of these other free areas and free places you can get assistance will be able to help you with. Star 3 for questions.
Perfect. So, and that is correct. Yeah, you may have a little bit of scar tissue in there, but not a qualifying diagnosis. And at that point, you may have a decision to make if you do have a downwinder compensable disease process. That is exactly correct. So what RECA provides qualified uranium workers, and once again, the miners, millers, ore transporters, core drillers, and remediation workers is a one-time lump sum payment of $100,000. Qualifying uranium workers may also qualify for an additional $50,000 through the Department of Labor. So basically what happens here is we gather all of our information, we have our diagnosis, we're going to compile all the information, and we're going to send it, and we can help you with this, we're going to send it off to the Department of Justice. One of the things that we will fill out is a Social Security Administration sheet with all of your information on it. They're going to send, once the Department of Justice gets that, they're going to send that off to the Social Security Administration, and they're going to get your earnings. They're going to find out exactly how long you worked. So there's no real way to kind of bend that. If the earnings aren't there, there are some other avenues that we may be able to take, and this may be another time when you may need some legal representation. If you do need legal representation and stuff, I know of somebody that we've worked with for years and has helped quite a few of our patients that have had difficult cases, still able to receive compensation. The other part to the Department of Labor end of things is you may get a $50,000 white card to help pay for medical expenses. Impairment exams will also need to be started at this time. So once and this would be through the Department of Labor, you would go ahead and call up the Department of Labor with your claim number. It may be automatic at this point, but I'm not positive, so I'm just going to state this, that you would want to call up the Department of Labor with your DOJ claim number, because they're going to send you something that says, hey, we've accepted you'll get your $100,000, but we've also accepted your claim, and now you need to move on and get impairment exams. There is still another $250,000 possibly wrapped up in those impairment exams. I believe also now we were able to once again do help with those impairment exams through University Hospital. And we can, give you information on that if we need to. For every 1% that you're gonna be disabled, you would get $2,500. So when it's all said and done, you would get the $250,000. If an individual has died, the survivors can still file a claim. It would be the spouse, children, parents, grandchildren. Once again, it's that same criteria and that same level of, kind of trickles down that way. They can apply for equal shares of that payment. And next slide, please. And I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Bartley for just a few minutes, and she's going to talk about the on-site participant.
Hi, these next two sections go pretty quickly. So the on-site participant is an individual who participated on-site at a test involving atmospheric detonation of a nuclear device and then later developed a compensable disease. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Not sure which you have. Okay, good. So a participant, or what on-site means, is that somebody who was present within a government installation during a testing that involved atmospheric detonation of a nuclear device. And this covers only those tests that were conducted in the United States prior to January 1st of 1963. It does not cover wartime detonations. So test sites would include the South Atlantic, Pacific test sites, Nevada, and Trinity. Also, the would cover any government installation where the equipment was decontaminated, or in areas after Nevada that was looking at the fallout, the atmospheric fallout. You can go on to the next slide. So the criteria for compensable disease is the same as it was for downwinder. And so because of time's sake, I'm not going to list those for you again, but you can look at them on the slides, but know that they're exactly the same. Next slide, please. So the amount is a little bit different here. You can get a one-time lump sum payment of $100,000 minus anything that you receive from the VA for the same illness. Again, if an individual has died, their survivors may apply in the same order of spouse. If there's no surviving spouse, children are the big ones. And I think we're going to go back to Zach from here. You can go to the next slide, please. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna glance through this real quick. This is the Manhattan Project Waste. They've been included in this also. This is going to be for people that were physically present for at least 2 years after January 1st, 1949, in the designated affected Manhattan Project Waste. That's going to be in the state of Missouri, in the state of Tennessee, in the state of Alaska, and in the state of Kentucky, only if they lived in a certain zip code. I'm not going to read all the zip codes off, but we can, if somebody has questions about that, call my office. We can walk you through it. Next slide, please. The compensation amount is going to be $50,000 for those folks that are still living at the time of filing. It'll be the greater of $50,000 or the total documented out-of-pocket medical expense related to the covered illness not paid for by or reimbursed through health insurance, a workers' compensation program, or public or private health program benefit. Where a qualifying individual is deceased at the time of filing, RECA provides their surviving spouse, $25,000. If there is no surviving spouse, the surviving children may receive equal shares of the $25,000 payment. Next slide. And I think we go back to Dr. Bartley one more time.
Okay, thank you. So this is just, tying some things together. The big thing here is that the deadline for filing RECA claim is December 31st of 2027. That seems like a long time, but it's really just around the corner, especially when you go to gather some of this information. Also, just a heads up, there is some confusion because there are some sites that are saying that the deadline is December 31st of 2028. That is not the case. The Department of Justice will pay for claims up until December 31st of 2028, but your claim must be in by December 31st of 2027. If you do file a RECA claim, you have 3 chances to get all of the documentation and all of the rebuttals in. A lot of times it's very simple. You'll get a letter and said, your claim is denied because we don't have a piece of paper. We don't have a official birth certificate. And so you will have 30, 60 days to get that in, whatever that letter says. You can do that up to 3 times, but after that 3rd attempt, it's done. You cannot file again. And at some point in the future, we're very excited about the Department of Justice will be accepting online applications. And so what that is going to do is that's going to take away some of the necessity of getting those official documents and having to give up your official birth certificate, death certificates, marriage licenses, and everything else down the road. And I think that pretty much
that is, and thank you so much for that presentation to both Zach and Denise, to UNM for having this resource that's available. I wanted to clarify because you talked a bit about that there are survivor benefits, and I think that's really important because so many New Mexicans, I mean, we all know somebody we loved who is likely impacted, but we've lost them. And so can you just real quickly talk about how survivor payments work for downwinders and for uranium miners? And, now that we have everybody included, including remediation. Thank you, Phil Harrison.
Yeah.
Can you just say that, Denise, that remind everybody that there are survivor payments for, what are the survivor payments for downwinders?
Right. So for downwinders and uranium workers, if the claimant, the person themselves that was affected, has passed away, the spouse can apply for the benefits, the same amount of compensation that they would get otherwise. So it would be $100,000. If there is no surviving spouse, then surviving children may apply. It's one-time lump sum payment, and it's divided equally among the children. But either can do that. And the downwinders would be the same. I'm sorry, downwinders and uranium workers. They can both file $100,000.
So this is really important. If you lost, if your parent died and qualifies because they were a downwind or a uranium worker, get all of your siblings together, have somebody file that claim. If you had 2 siblings, you'll divide it among the 2 or among the 3, among the 5. I think it's important that people understand that this is available because we fought for this for a long time and we lost people during the fight, but they deserve the justice. And in essence, the apology that comes with this payment. I want to go, we have one more presenter and then we'll get to your questions. *3 if you have a question. *6 if you want to sign up for my newsletter. We'll have information about this. And remember, Fernandez with a Z, fernandez.house.gov. We will have a banner so that you can access the whole presentation. You can access a recording of what we've done tonight. You can share it with people who you believe might be claimants, because we want everybody who deserves this compensation to get it. I'm going to turn it over to Gina Grimes of the New Mexico Environmental Department. She is working directly with former uranium workers and downwinders. Gina, why don't you tell us a little bit about what New Mexico Environmental Department and what you're doing on this issue?
Hi, thank you, and thanks to you, Congresswoman, and your team for organizing this workshop. So the state of New Mexico, I work for the state of New Mexico Environment Department in the Radiation Control Bureau. We have our Nuclear Workers Advocacy Office. We help file the claims. We do case management. So I'd like to discuss the authorized representative portion of the RECA program, or the filing the application. Denise kind of touched on it, but I'm going to add just a little bit more. So an authorized representative is a person who can communicate with the claim staff, access file documentation, receive copy of decisions, submit objections, file appeals, and seek medical authorizations on the claimant's behalf. Those are just a few things. And then who can be an authorized representative? Anyone, any trusted family member or friend. You are not required to have an authorized rep. You don't have to have one. When you can remove and change your AR at your authorized rep at any time. And your appointment of an authorized rep must be in writing, as well as your revocation of an authorized rep. One thing that we're running into here, or that I've come across a couple of claimants, is that there was an authorized rep in place, and there's no expiration on that. So it's been kind of a little difficult getting. So we've had someone move to Las Vegas, and this person does not want to change their AR rep. They don't want the state to be involved. So it's just been kind of difficult to get them to remove us so that they can have the next person come in and assist them. And you're only allowed one AR at a time. So what our office does here is that we can help you with filing a claim. We'll help you with forms completion, explain your compensation and benefits, explain medical benefits, and we'll assist you with your travel and medical reimbursements. The state of New Mexico does charge. We charge 0.5% of your award for your initial claim. So, for example, if you are awarded $25,000, we will take 0.5, which is $125. After an appeal, the state of New Mexico takes 5% of your award. Other companies or individuals may charge you 2%. And that's like the general concern, is that what we're all concerned about here is we want you to be educated and know that you have options and choices in choosing a representative, a company, whether it's going through the UNM program, IHS if you're eligible, or through the state of New Mexico, or a private company. We just want you to know that you have choices. And also, we are here to help you. We have a dedicated staff. We're empathetic. We want to get you the help and the compensation that you deserve. We want you to be cautious of those scammers. That's been a general concern here with everybody. They're out there. And if you have any questions on these companies, you can call us or you can call me. I'm here to help you and navigate this application process. It's a daunting application, about 25 pages long, without your verifications and your employment history, residential history. But I'm here to help. And State of New Mexico Environment Department, I am in the Radiation Control Bureau for the Nuclear Workers Advocacy Office.
Thank you so much, Gina. And I want to point out that we have we switched to me, but we do have the contact information for State of New Mexico, Gina. for IHS, Denise, and for Zach over at UNM. So whether you're qualified through, because you're Navajo, Acoma, Laguna, any other tribe, you could go through IHS, or you can go through ZAC, which covers everybody, including tribal, or GINA, which also covers the state. The University of New Mexico, that program receives federal funding, which is why they don't have to, they don't charge anything, because they're receiving federal funding to help with that. But the state of New Mexico is also a very trusted resource, and they charge a very small amount, and they're a trusted resource. I want to go to some questions now. We're going to ask Anna from Farmington. What's your question, Anna? And thank you for joining us tonight.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Anna. Yes.
Okay. So I was born in Roswell in 1953. I attended public school in Roswell throughout my grade school, and then moved to Albuquerque. But during the time frame before 1962, I was at Military Heights Elementary School. All of my school records that my parents had were lost in a fire. So how do I prove residency for 1 year between 1953 and 1962?
That's a great question, because these kinds of disasters happen, right? That your personal records might be lost. Zach, why don't you explain to her how you help somebody like this prove residency? Zach,
Congresswoman, it seems like Zach is not on, so we will.
No, there is Zach.
I just got back on. Yeah, I was frozen. Sorry about that.
So Zach, did you hear the question? The question is, so Anna, so she lost, she lived in Roswell, military, she went to military school. She was a resident, but she lost all of her personal files. There was a fire. So how can she go back and show the residency when they no longer have personal files? Like, what are some of the other alternatives ways where she can go to some of the public places where you can prove residency, since all the personal files were lost in the fire?
Sorry. Yes, and that's exactly what I would say is if they usually can prove residency in a few other creative ways. It's mostly been applied downwinders and stuff. But if this is a uranium worker, you don't necessarily need to have any of those files, because like I was saying, they're going to send your information.
I think Anna's not, I think she's a downwinder.
Okay. And, to be honest, is Denise still here?
I am still here.
I would let Denise field that. She's going to be more of an expert at that than I will be.
So, and I'm sorry, what year did you say you were born?
53. And I attended public school between 1958 and through the deadline of 1962 in Roswell.
Okay.
That was grade school. And so does the Department of Education keep records like that, or?
Sometimes they do, but sometimes they do throw away their old records. But also, so one proof is your birth certificate. You can use that.
Okay, I've got my birth certificate, yeah.
Okay. And then also, because you went to a military school, they will keep better records.
No, it wasn't a military school. It wasn't a military school. It was called Military Heights Elementary School. It was a public school.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry for the confusion on that.
Sorry, Anna.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you can contact those schools individually to see if they have any records. You can obtain immunization records, usually from the state health departments. You can, they will also accept journals and letters during that time frame.
See, all that stuff's gone.
Have any of that?
So I wouldn't have any way of knowing about that. But I can try and contact the school and see if they have records back that far. So
Yeah. So like some way of thinking about it, like what are the ways, like there are, how they took pictures, yearbooks, start like brainstorming about what are ways in which you, maybe others had saved yearbooks or pictures and things like that. So I think that, and I think that
Report
going in
cards.
person and meeting, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is you can get affidavits from people who knew where you were at a specific time and submit those.
So
So
can
thank you.
anyone can you hear me? This is Tina.
Hi, Tina.
Hi. So you can use immunization records, and the other thing that you can do to prove your residency is if you had brothers and sisters, you can use their birth certificates to establish that you had brothers and sisters that your parents had around that same time frame. You can use your parents' records.
okay.
You can use your parents' records, like their voting records, their voting registration, tax records, any of those things, because you're a child dependent of your parents. And if you could prove that they were alive and living in New Mexico during that time frame, that establishes that you were with them.
Okay.
And the other thing is the U.S. Census reports, because they do list the children on the U.S. Census reports.
So this is great. That was a great question. I'm going to move on to another question. Thank you, Tina, for helping out. This is an example of Tina and the Downwinders. They provide great information and assistance and will be available. Arlene, thank you, Arlene. You are on the air. You have been unmuted. Just go ahead and ask your question, Arlene.
Okay, as a former uranium worker, and if we received a B reading from Dr. Sue through the Raton uranium screening, but with no documentation, no diagnose, no certified letter, is that still accountable?
Zach, you want to, either Zach or Denise, you want to answer that about how you could either get additional documentation or even a new B-reader that you might be available there? What would you recommend?
So I would recommend that you get another chest X-ray done, and then we submit it for another B-read. That's why I was kind of hesitant to say, some of the Raton stuff can be used, because a lot of those were done for coal work and not necessarily for uranium work, and it may have been for a different reason other than for RECA compensation. So that diagnosis letter may not have accompanied that B-read. If that's the case, we can't go back and write a new diagnosis letter for it. The process would basically need to be repeated. And I will state that just because you've had one positive B-read, it doesn't mean every successive B read after that is going to, every chest X-ray is going to show the same thing. But that's what I would suggest. Give me a call. We can get a chest X-ray. We'll send it in and see if we can't get another B read done on it.
Congresswoman, can you hear us? It seems like you're frozen. Can you hear us? Okay, while we wait for the Congresswoman to get back on, I'm going to go ahead and read one of the online questions from Rita, who asked, where can forms be picked up? Can either Zach or someone from the team answer that?
I can answer that. I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead,
If you're able to get online, and you can just Google RECA and DOJ, it's going to take you to the .gov site. That if you go about 3/4 of the way down that page, you'll see all four forms there. If you need, you can call my office. I will send you an application. If you don't have the ability to print and download that stuff, let me know which one you need. And I can even mail that form to you if you would like. I will say, just since I've got everybody's attention for a second, if you do call my office, there's just me and my coworker, Michaela Brasesco, who works there. You can talk to either one of us, but it has been really difficult for us to keep up with the phone calls to always be able to pick up the phone. So please leave a message, leave your number. Our phones are a little antiquated. They do not save caller ID information. So we don't have that information. If you just say, hey, this is Joe, call me back. I'm not going to be able to. Leave the number twice. State it slowly and leave it twice, because sometimes with these rural landlines, or with just the cell phones the way they are and stuff, is sometimes it can be really difficult to understand, or they cut out for just a hair and it only is missing one number. But we typically try and call people back within 1 to 3 days. We're kind of out of the 3-day wait period, but just so you know, leave a message. We will get back to you. If you haven't heard from us for some reason, something probably went wrong with the message system, call back. We are here for you guys. We will call you back, Michaela or I will.
Well, thank you very much, Zach and Kayla. And I'd also add that if you're having trouble receiving the forms, you can also contact our office. Once again, that number is 505-428-4680, and we will work on sending the forms to you as well. I'm going to read another online question, and it is from Mary. And Mary asked, how do we certify documents when submitting by mail? If you are a child and can't get school or church records, what is proof of residency? And I want to point out that Mary is from Utah, and she's part of that greater coalition that we were talking about working together on. And thank you, Mary, for all the work you did to make sure that we got this passed. We had a little bit of discussion about this already, but I think it's so important. So Denise, how to certify documents when submitting by mail?
So especially for the medical records documents that you will need, when you ask for the medical records from whatever facility you're asking for them, the medical records department will know what you mean when you say, please certify these documents. It's really just one page that has a signature and a date on it, but that's what you will need. You have to send in the original documents, not copies, even though they're copies. Also, if you send in the original birth certificates, other documents, death certificates, whatever they may be, baptismal certificates, you will eventually get them back. But those just have to be the originals, not necessarily certified. And
then on the church and school records, we had a bit of conversation of that in terms of trying to get tax documents, trying to get affidavits, and other information about from your church or your school if you're a child. Thank you very much, Tina. I think we covered that question a little bit. There was another online question from Maria, and this was part of, we've gotten several questions that read a little bit like this about how parents can, if you lost your parents, how children can apply. And what Maria actually asked, I'm going to read it out loud. Marla, sorry, I thought it was an I. Marla, her question was, I'm reading it now. My father was a uranium worker before 1970. He received compensation before he died. Then my mother died of the same disease 3 years later, but she never received compensation. Can I apply for her? And then we children got cancer too, and we lived near the mines. So Denise, what would be your advice to Marla?
So So Marla, one of the things is even though your mother died from the same disease that your dad did, she would not be cancered unless it was specifically lung cancer. So we are seeing this, that some of the downwinders are coming in with like pulmonary fibrosis. It's not covered for them. And I'm sorry for that. It is frustrating. If the children, you and your siblings, do meet the criteria, you obviously were in one of the states that was acceptable. And if you have one of the specific cancers, then you can qualify for downwinders. But if you're beyond the age group or we're not in one of those locations during that time frame, again, I'm sorry, they're really strict on it. There's nothing to do.
But this also goes to the fact that there is survivor benefits if your parent would have qualified as a downwinder, or if they happen to be a uranium worker as well.
Correct, but you're frozen again. Correct, but her dad had already been compensated, so they can't be recompensated. And so the only other avenue then would go for your mom as a downwinder. But she would have had to have one of those specific cancers. And I'm kind of thinking in my mind, because we see this, is that I'm wondering if the mom actually had one of the pulmonary fibrosis or silicosis, but those would not have covered. And we do see that because of the wives having been so upfront and right in the middle of that dust, like cleaning and washing clothes. So we do see that transfer, but unfortunately, it's not accepted in RECA. I'm sorry, RECA. But yeah, if you want to give either Zachariah a call, we can talk about it more so that I can get that other information to see if there might be an avenue for you guys to reach compensation.
Since we have just a second, I just wanted to state something really quick that was that if somebody does receive compensation, if you owe the government money, they're going to take that money first before you would receive. So if you have outstanding tax debt, if you have unpaid school loans and stuff like that, something along those lines, they will pull that money from the compensation. From what I understand, if you're actively making payments on a school loan or something along those lines and stuff, you should be okay. But I just wanted to state that. It's good that your debt would be going down also, though, too.
Thank you. That was going to be our last question. I'm sorry, but we had a little bit of technical difficulties with my computer. But I wanted to, as I pointed out earlier, we are all incredibly grateful because the reason this law exists is because of the hard work of the people who made it happen. And we have 3 of them I want to recognize. We have 2 of them who will join, 2 of us who will join us on camera. Phil Harrison, who's a Uranium Radiation Victims Committee advocate. He was a radiation, he worked on remediation. We have Tina Cordova, who is co-founder of the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium. And we have Loretta Anderson, who is the co-founder of the Southwest Uranium Miners Coalition post-71. We have their photos up, but I just wanted to ask if Phil and Harrison would close us out in any way you want, whether it's a blessing, a prayer, and I just want to say thank you to all of the entire coalition, not just those we're featuring here, but a coalition that reached all the way to the Pacific, to the mountains of Utah, to the rivers of Missouri. Let's start with Tina.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez. I think what I would like to do is take this time and opportunity to first recognize the losses that everybody has sustained. I often say we've given everything to the defense of our country, serving in the military, uranium mining, and then as downwinders. And so I want to reflect on everything that everyone's lost for just one moment. But I also, Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez, want to thank you personally and our entire congressional delegation, because in New Mexico, we were very fortunate. We had all 5 members of Congress from New Mexico supporting this from the get-go. And I often say, if not for them, we could not have kept this fight alive. And so we're very fortunate to have had the support of both our U.S. senators and all 3 of our members of the House of Representatives. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez.
Hello.
I'm sorry, it seems we're still having technical difficulties with the Congresswoman. Phil, are you on? Can you close this out for 1 second?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I just want to thank Congresswoman Fernandez for all the work they have done, Senator Lujan. This has been a long struggle, and a lot of people have passed without recognition or compensation. That we're just happy that the RECA law has been amended and passed, so we can go ahead and help our people. And there are going to be some struggles. For example, the retrieving of medical records is going to be a long process. The ordering of work history through Social Security Administration takes 3 to 4 months to get work history. That's going to be a problem. I wish somebody could make a directive to IHS or to Social Security to expedite these requests as soon as possible. So that's something to be a struggle. Presentation sounds like very simple, but it does take a lot of work on behalf of the family. The burdens on them because of the Privacy Act. So that's going to be a struggle for them too.
He's still talking. Hi, Phil.
I'm done.
Thank you so much, Phil, for sharing those words and recognizing that things. This is not, nothing about this has been easy, but I think what is really key is we want to make sure everybody who qualifies applies and receives the compensation they deserve, because this is an injustice that we need to make sure is remedied, and the only way we get it remedied is to have you apply. And in that way, we honor all of those who we have lost, as Tina pointed out. We honor the hard work of people like Phil and all the advocates who have worked with him. And you know, this is an issue of justice. And here in Congress and in the work that all of you have done, was you were always pursuing justice. It was, your business was justice, right? And it's not every day that you get to share with people that you worked on something for 2 decades and you made it happen. And that's what you have done. You have been working on this issue for decades, and you never gave up, and you made it happen. And New Mexico is thankful for your work, and communities across the country are thankful for your work. Now, I'm going to just remind everybody, press *6 if you want to subscribe to our newsletter for updates. Go to fernandez.house.gov/RECA. You'll be able to get a copy of this presentation and other resources. The video of this event will be up tomorrow. It takes us a while to upload it. But make sure you tell everybody you know, put it on social, share it with people, tell your neighbors. We want everybody in New Mexico who we lost to the cancers that were caused by the testing, the cancers that were caused and all of the other diseases that were caused if you were working in the mines to get their compensation. This was the first of many workshops that will be going on. We will have in-person workshops where it will be easier, where you can go up and talk to people. We know that I'm in Washington, D.C. in my office, and I had technical problems, right? We know that online doesn't always work. We had over 12,000 people participate in this workshop, which shows how important it is. We don't always able to get 12,000 people in a room in New Mexico, but we will go out to many different places. I might not always be there, but we'll get people out to all of the communities that are most impacted. Muchísimas gracias. Bendiciones a todos. God bless everybody. God bless the United States of America and our beautiful state of New Mexico, who led this effort on behalf of victims across the country and across the Pacific. Good night, everybody. Buenas noches.
Good night.